Welcome to This Explainer. Today, we're diving into something absolutely fascinating. We're going to take a journey right inside the biological microfactory that's running inside of you 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. We're going to demystify the hidden world of cellular respiration, which is basically the cornerstone process of how your body harnesses energy from food.
Think about it for a second. Did you know that every single breath you take is literally powering an intricate energy factory deep inside your cells? It's really easy to just think about the macro action, right? Our chest rising and falling. But today, we're going to bridge that macro feeling of breathing with the microscopic reality of cellular energy.
Okay, let's dive into this. Here is our ultimate study blueprint for today. First, the cellular energy factory. Second, aerobic versus anaerobic respiration. Third, repaying the oxygen debt. Fourth, transporting essential gases. And finally, some exam prep and common misconceptions.
Section 1. The Cellular Energy Factory.
So, respiration. It's the biological process by which living organisms release energy from food, primarily glucose. But look at the explicitly labeled contrast card on screen here. This is a controlled oxidation process, not a simple breakdown, and it is definitely not just physical breathing. You gotta imagine it as a slow-burning fire happening right inside your cells, gradually releasing the energy that's locked away in that glucose. Let's see how this actually plays out functionally. The process extracts energy from glucose and captures it in something called ATP. Using the split-screen layout here, notice how the micro-level capture of energy in that ATP molecule on the left translates instantly via those bold directional arrows to the macro-level actions on the right. That microscopic ATP is powering your vital macro functions, like your muscle contractions and your nerve impulses.
Section 2. Aerobic versus anaerobic respiration.
First up is aerobic respiration. Follow along with the chronological flowchart here. Step 1, we start with glucose plus oxygen. Step 2, the chemical reaction yields our outputs in step 3. Notice the outputs: carbon dioxide, water, and look at that massive, bright, glowing text, a huge amount of energy. This primary assembly line requires oxygen and is, by far, the absolute most efficient way for your body to extract energy from glucose. And this brilliantly illustrates the exact location where this complete breakdown happens: the mitochondria. We constantly hear it called the powerhouse of the cell, and for good reason. When aerobic respiration takes place here, it's like giving your body a full tank of gas, providing maximum mileage and peak efficiency. But, what happens when oxygen is scarce? The factory has to switch to its backup generator. Let's follow this alternate flowchart. Step 1, glucose, but this time, 0 oxygen. Step 2, yielding our outputs in step 3. Notice the difference here? The outputs are lactic acid and, well, look closely at the scale of the text for energy. It's in a noticeably smaller font, right? This is anaerobic respiration in human muscles. It happens without oxygen, and while it definitely keeps you moving, it yields significantly less energy. Let's directly contrast these two. On the left, aerobic, requires oxygen, most efficient. On the right, anaerobic, no oxygen, much less efficient. And hey, that lactic acid buildup we just saw on the anaerobic side, if you've ever felt that intense burning sensation in your muscles during a really brutal workout, that is the literal, physical feeling of lactic acid accumulating in your tissues because your body had to switch to its anaerobic backup generator.
Now, this exam prep grid is incredibly useful for seeing how this varies across different organisms. We've established that humans take in glucose and output lactic acid plus energy when oxygen is scarce. But look at the row right below it. Yeast also undergoes anaerobic respiration, but its output is completely different. Yeast takes glucose and outputs ethanol, carbon dioxide, and energy. And actually, this specific biological mechanism is exactly what we harness in the real world for baking bread and brewing. Pretty amazing, right?
Section 3. Repaying the oxygen debt.
Have you ever wondered why you just continue to pant heavily even after you've completely stopped a full-speed sprint? It's because of what's defined right here: oxygen debt. This is the extra oxygen your body desperately needs post-exercise to break down that accumulated lactic acid and restore your baseline energy levels. Your body's logistics network is literally paying back a chemical debt. Watch this visual flowchart progress to see exactly how this works chronologically. Step 1. Intense exercise creates that lactic acid buildup. Now, as the flowchart moves forward, notice how step 1 dims out. We arrive at step 2. Muscle fatigue sets in. Finally, dimming step 2, the visual highlights step 3. Heavy breathing kicks in to supply the extra oxygen specifically required to actively break down that lactic acid.
Section 4. Transporting essential gases. Let's track the inbound oxygen logistics. Look at the flow indicators. Oxygen travels in your blood bound directly to a protein called hemoglobin, essentially hitching a ride inside your red blood cells. So, the crucial point is what happens when it reaches its destination. As indicated by the descending arrows, when those red blood cells reach tissues that are low in oxygen, the oxygen physically detaches and diffuses right into the specific cells that need it most.
But a factory doesn't just need raw materials, right? It has to clear out the waste. Look at the outbound waste logistics. Carbon dioxide is the primary waste product of aerobic respiration. The outward-pointing vectors show it traveling away from the cells. It actually does this in 3 distinct forms. But as highlighted by the bolded text, it is transported primarily as bicarbonate ions. This continuous, highly efficient removal of carbon dioxide is just as vital to your survival as oxygen delivery.
Section 5. Exam prep and misconceptions. Okay, let's tackle the single biggest biological misconception head-on by explicitly decoupling the chemical process from the mechanical one. Look at the stark visual contrast here. On one side, respiration, a cellular process releasing energy via oxidation. On the other side, breathing, the physical, muscular act of inhaling and exhaling. They are related for sure, but they are absolutely not the same thing. Here's another massive trap that students constantly fall into. Quoted right here. Another misconception is thinking anaerobic respiration doesn't produce energy. It does, just less efficiently. Please don't let a multiple-choice question trick you on this. Both methods produce energy. The difference is purely in the magnitude and the efficiency of the yield.
Now, what's really interesting about this slide is it tells you exactly how to translate this knowledge into exceptional exam grades. First, clearly distinguish between aerobic and anaerobic processes. Second, memorize the exact word equations. You got to know your inputs and outputs flawlessly. And third, practice drawing and labeling diagrams of the respiratory system. If you can visually map the variables to the physical structures like we've done today, you'll absolutely ace this topic.
I want to leave you with a provocative thought based on everything we've uncovered today. We know anaerobic respiration is the backup generator. But if your cells can successfully survive without oxygen during a grueling sprint, relying entirely on that backup system, how long could human biology theoretically push the limits of anaerobic survival before the oxygen debt becomes impossible to repay? It's a truly fascinating question about the very limits of human endurance. Thank you so much for joining me for this explainer, and keep exploring the incredible biology happening inside of you every single second.